vision.
Hey everyone, Dave here, and I'm getting ready to say goodbye to How I Met Your Mother.
2, 3, 4!
Ever since I discovered this show, it's been one of my favorites. It was fall of 2008, the first semester of my senior year of college. My closest friend at school and occasional roommate had just gotten engaged, and I was bored. I had just that summer been blown away by a certain musical mad scientist. Of course, I knew NPH from Starship Troopers and Harold and Kumar, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but he was funny in it. Oh, and I loved his amazing guest turn on riff tracks, and I had vague memories of seeing Doogie Howser as a kid, but it was his PhD in horribleness that compelled me to seek out that other show that I had heard he was on. So I watched the pilot, in which Ted reacts to his closest friend and roommate getting engaged. It's like it was fate. Ever since then, it's been one of my favorite shows. Now, I have a lot of favorite shows. There are plenty of other shows that make me laugh, that make me care about the characters, that make me admire the writing or the craftsmanship, but no other show has ever applied so directly to my life as How I Met Your Mother. Whether it's all too relatable storylines or jokes that make for always applicable quotes, I was constantly seeing my own life in the characters' lives and vice versa. That might say some sad things about my life. In honor of the impending series finale of the show and its tremendous impact on me, I've decided to list my favorite episodes from the whole series. Now, just to be clear, these might not all be the most important episodes or the most creative or even the funniest. These are the episodes that I enjoyed the most and the episodes that really resonated and stuck with me in some way. So, let's begin. Number 11, The Pineapple Incident. While Robin is out on a date with a billionaire,
he's a 100 millionaire. Why do people always round up?
Barney convinces Ted to take shots so he can stop overthinking and start doing. Ted immediately blacks out and wakes up with a girl and a pineapple. Everyone else helps him piece together the events of the night before. A good 4 years before the first Hangover movie. 10 episodes into the series, we get the first real indicator of the fun this show could have with its Arrested Development-esque nonlinear format. This episode is filled with flashbacks and flash-forwards, hints and clues, setups and payoffs, and Winnie Cooper. It set the standard for the look, feel, and flow that How I Met Your Mother episodes would soon be known for. And while the presentation gimmick makes it fun and memorable, the theme of this episode, as presented by Barney, is thinking versus doing. Ted, who has had some unfortunate experience with not reining in his instincts, spends all of his time in his own head and never goes after what he wants or needs, whereas Barney doesn't even consider consequences and follows every single whim. Ted tries doing it Barney's way, and things look good, until they don't. The characters don't find the right balance in this episode because the right balance of that sort of thing can only be developed with extensive trial and error, and even then, nobody can find the perfect balance 100% of the time. But in the meantime, all they can do is learn from their mistakes and enjoy a mysterious, tasty pineapple. Number 10. Spoiler alert. No, that's the name of the episode. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I'm probably going to spoil it by talking about it, but you know what? Ted can't wait to introduce his new, seemingly perfect girlfriend to the gang. But when they all seem to hate her, he can't figure out why. They don't want to be the ones to shatter his illusions of her, but eventually they give in.
Kathy talks a lot.
And one thing leads to another, and soon everybody's illusions of each other are shattered. Look, if you spend enough time with anyone, something about them will annoy you. And sure, maybe it's a bad habit on the other person's part, and sure, some things are just deal breakers, but when it comes to the little things, dwelling on annoyance is just petty. And there is nothing funnier than watching sitcom characters act petty.
Oh, I literally want to rip your head off!
You mean figuratively?
No, I literally mean literally. Literally, literally, literally. Oh my god, Lily, what are you eating? Gravel?
Also, should I be concerned that I'm often guilty of just about every single annoying trait these main characters have? Sitting on the couch, watching TV, these trips are blowing my mind, literally. Dude, who taught you how to strangle people? You really need a better approach than this. Number 9. The 3 Days Rule. When Ted meets a girl and wants to skip the 3 days rule and call her right away, Marshall and Barney try to sabotage him by switching numbers in his phone. This leads to a string of deceptive texts that just might go too far. In a show prone to genre bending, timeline hopping, and general emotional whiplash, sometimes it's fun to see some good old-fashioned sitcom hijinks. This episode may not be one of the show's most creative or groundbreaking, but it's a fun look at these characters having fun at each other's expense. Also, voice actor extraordinaire Kevin Michael Richardson makes an appearance in one of the more bizarre roles of his already quite eclectic career. But man, does he deliver.
Stroke my hair. Tell me I'm a woman and show me you a man. Until there was only now. You and I, and now.
Yes! You want me to text that to Ted?
The cold open features my absolute favorite of Barney's fake history lessons that doubles as a fake theology lesson, and of course the entire episode is extremely quotable.
Wow, ancient dialogue sounds so stilted now.
Why do we keep trying to have sex with Ted?
I don't know, it's weird.
Couldn't you guys just stay here and do your date with us?
That is good. But I feel like we keep coming back to that 3 months to live thing.
Yep, not a major episode, just kind of a feel-good episode. Just an episode I really, really like a lot. Hey, you can always go make your own favorites list, you know. Number 8. The Time Travelers. Barney tries to get Ted to come out to Robots vs. Wrestlers, and in order to convince him, he enlists the help of themselves from the future. More and more characters from more and more points in time get involved, each making their case for how Ted should spend his evening. Once again, we're back to that old theme of thinking versus doing, but even more importantly, we're looking at the idea of making the most of a moment before it passes you by. Memories are a wonderful thing, but if you spend all your time living in your old memories, you'll forget to make new ones, and you'll forget to appreciate what you have in front of you. And if there's anyone who knows a thing or two about living in his old memories, it's the guy who's spending 9 years telling his kids a story. The weird abundance of time travelers leads to some hilarious absurdist moments, but it's all saved from being too cartoony by the incredibly poignant ending. An ending that's meaningful on its own, and has fans speculating right up to the series finale. Yeah, I'm fearing the worst. Not expecting, but fearing. Number 7. How I Met Everyone Else. Ted introduces his new girlfriend to the gang. Yeah, a lot of the episodes start with the gang meets Ted's girlfriend of the week. She's ashamed that they met online, and to distract Barney from ranking her on the hot crazy scale, the rest of the gang tells stories about how they all met. The idea of telling stories isn't just the show's framing device, it's one of the central themes of the entire series. The show explores not only the power of telling stories, but how the same stories come across totally differently from a slightly different perspective, or with just one missing piece of information. Here we get to see expanded versions of stories we've heard bits of earlier in the series, stories of how these characters we've gotten to know and love got to know and love each other.
First day of college, I showed up. I was so freaked out, and I got up to my room, and there was my roommate.
Ted,
Yeah.
I was high that day. I was so high I thought you were the dean.
You're not the dean.
And while they may not radically alter the way we see these characters, they certainly enhance our understanding of them. Plus, this episode introduced eating a sandwich into the show's glossary, and any episode that addresses narrator Ted's fading memory is bound to have a few laughs.
Everyone, this is Blah Blah.
Please, call me Blah.
Number 6. Trilogy Time. Every 3 years, the guys watch the original Star Wars trilogy. Clearly in a special edition VHS case, but who's counting? Each time, they reflect on how their lives have changed in the past 3 years, and imagine where their lives will be 3 years from then. And there tends to be quite a bit of disappointment. For better or worse, I don't think anybody wakes up and realizes that they're exactly where they thought or hoped they would be at that point in their lives. Sometimes we've failed to achieve something we wanted, sometimes our dreams and priorities just change, sometimes an opportunity comes along we didn't know we wanted. But whatever the reason, nobody actually knows how their life will end up, no matter how much they try to control their destiny. This episode takes that core relatable concept and expands on it with hilarious speculation from the characters, plus a healthy dose of Star Wars geekery. Honestly, it would kind of be soul-crushing to see how far off the mark all of their predictions were, if it weren't for the fact that their predictions are really funny.
Luckily, I have the cash and prizes for my historic 7-week run on Wheel of Fortune. Can I just make one little adjustment? For which I was knighted by Her Majesty the Queen.
Number 5. Ted Mosby Architect. Robin's just not interested in Ted's work, which leads to their first fight. Barney tries to convince Ted that plenty of other women find architecture sexy.
You create something out of nothing. You're like God. There's nobody hotter than God.
I love it when you quote scripture.
Ted puts this theory to the test, and Robin and Lily spend the night tracking Ted down, increasingly horrified as they hear about his behavior. So many stories throw in a twist ending for the sake of a twist ending, but they often forget the most important thing that makes a twist work. The story has to make perfect sense if you don't know the twist, but make even better sense once you do. And the first time I watched this episode, I never questioned the events of the story as presented, but when I found out what was really going on, I wondered how I could have missed it. It was all so obvious. This episode has a prime example of one of the show's favorite tropes, dialogue that gets repeated verbatim, but in a completely different context, giving it a completely different meaning.
Aren't you a little worried that a certain somebody might find out that you're doing this? And this isn't you, Ted.
It is tonight.
And to this day, Ted Mosby, Architect, is part of my vernacular as a shorthand for unwarranted suavity. Comes up a surprising amount. Number 4. Sandcastles in the Sand. Robin's ex-boyfriend is in town, and she's still hung up on him, even though he's grown up to be James Vanderbilt. She falls into the same pattern she found herself in as a teenager, and faces heartbreak yet again. Meanwhile, Barney is on the hunt to find the second Robin Sparkles video.
I will spend every waking minute searching down this tape. I will not sleep, I will not eat. My life will be a living hell of search engines and overseas phone calls, chasing down something that possibly can't be found. Okay.
You know those episodes of television where a dramatic ending had such an impact that people forget just how laugh-out-loud hilarious the rest of the episode was? I'm talking about episodes like the Jurassic Bark episode of Futurama, or the episode of MASH where Henry died. Well, this episode doesn't end with the character death, but it does end with a dramatic turn that I'm pretty sure is most people's only takeaway, even though everything before that turn is laugh-out-loud hilarious. Seriously, I still laugh throughout this entire episode. Simon's description of work as a lifeguard, Murder Train, Revertigo, which is still the name I use for aggressive behavior, and of course the Sandcastles in the Sand video. It's the natural companion to Let's Go to the Mall, but even funnier because it takes itself so seriously. And it marks the first appearance of beloved recurring character Alan Thicke. I choose to believe that Alan was friends with the Scherbatskys for a long time and named his own son after their family. Number 3. Right Place, Right Time. Another of the recurring themes on the show is a sort of butterfly effect idea of how even the tiniest choice can change the course of your life. They explore this a bit in Season 2's Lucky Penny, where Ted and Robin trace a seemingly disastrous event back to its origin point, with more blame shifting than the second act of Into the Woods. But while that episode was more of a straight line of cause and effect, this episode is all about the unrelated little things that come together to lead to a moment. And why does this episode mean so much to me personally? Well, it came out 2 weeks before I graduated college. So I was already thinking quite a bit about how my life got to where it was, and where it was going next. I had just had a long talk a few days before with one of my dearest friends about how amazing it was that everything aligned so that we could become friends in the first place. And then through our friendship, we introduced other friends, and some of those friends started dating, and actually now some of those friends are married to each other, all because of a long string of being in the right place at the right time to lead to those moments. So I was in the perfect emotional space to accept this episode, and it's stuck with me ever since. Plus, Dan Castellaneta plays a crazy homeless guy, and Marshall makes the funniest Simon and Garfunkel reference I've ever seen on television. Yes, even funnier than the Flight of the Conchords episode. Number 2. Warning. This episode is from Season 9, the final season. If you're waiting for a DVD or Netflix to watch Season 9, and wish to avoid spoilers, please skip ahead to this point. I'll give you a moment. Alright, I'm going to assume they're all gone by now, so let's continue. How Your Mother Met Me. The title pretty much says it all. This episode revisits major moments in the series from the mother's perspective. Needless to say, there are plenty of delightful callback jokes, but it's not just a lazy Forrest Gumping of the mother into important scenes. This episode shows how the mother's story has intertwined with Ted's story from the very beginning. An episode like this was essential in order to have Ted's meeting of the mother be satisfying in any way. If he had just looked up at some actress we had never seen before and Bob Saget said, "That's how I met your mother," it would have felt pretty anticlimactic. But through this episode, I don't know about you, but I certainly fell in love with the mother. And we get to see just how much she and Ted have in common. I mean, sure, the surface level comparisons are obvious.
You should have brought him to my room. Okay, he would have run screaming once he saw my calligraphy set, my coin collection, my chainmail corset from the Renaissance fair. Oh, that's pretty cool.
But they're also both people who have had their hearts broken and needed to learn how to move on before they were ready to meet each other. This episode was necessary, but at no point does it feel like it was just done out of obligation. The mother's not just Ted's conquest, his reward for sticking it out over 9 seasons. She's a real character, one who feels right at home in the show. I think it's safe to say from this episode that she passes the front porch test. Alright, that's it for the Season 9 spoilers. I'll wait for those other folks to come back now. You all back? All of you? Great. Welcome back, non-spoiler people. Let's move on. And my number 1 favorite episode of How I Met Your Mother, Swirly. When hanging out at a coffee shop staffed exclusively by Joss Whedon alumni, Marshall gets Inara's phone number and they get ready to go on a date. Ted and Barney warn him that she has crazy eyes, indicating that the relationship will go very bad very soon. Meanwhile, Lily has trouble handling the idea that Marshall might be moving on, and goes crazy trying to find out who the new girl is. Those subplots are both very important in laying the course of the series, and they give the episode some laughs, but they're not what make this episode memorable. No, the thing that makes this episode memorable is the nonsense word that gives it its title.
Mine says Swirly. I think it's Swirly from Barney. It's not even a name. Who would ever be called Swirly? Oh, please don't start calling me Swirly.
Sure, we've all seen misspelled or misheard names. We've probably gotten our name misspelled in a coffee shop. But usually they're misheard as another name, not just syllables. I can't imagine the Swirly idea worked on paper, but in execution, holy crap, it makes me laugh more and more every time it's said. Partially due to Barney's increasing frustration, partially due to the rest of the gang's commitment, and partially due to being such a hilariously silly word. The first time I saw this episode, when binge-watching through the first 3 seasons, it was early one Sunday morning. Later that morning I was in church, and the word Swirly just popped into my head, and I could not stop giggling. And while they milk it for all it's worth in this episode, what's great is that they never ran it into the ground by calling back to it later. I can only remember one recent instance where the name was ever mentioned again. And for me, this episode has everything I love about How I Met Your Mother. Moments of heartwarming tenderness, an unstoppable spirit of silliness, plenty of laughs, and a genuine feeling of friendship and camaraderie from the gang at McLaren's. Swirly! Of course, there are many, many, many other episodes I love of the show, but those were the ones that stuck with me the most. What about you? What were your favorite episodes? Let me know in the comments, and I'm going to go prepare for the series finale, desperately hoping it's worthy to be added to the list. And hoping it's not terribly depressing to the point where it taints my enjoyment of every episode leading up to it. I'm not expecting that, but it's happened before. But until then, this is Dave signing off.